Hello, my name's Rory, I'm a student content shaper, and if you've clicked on this video, there's a chance you're looking for some study tips, of which I've got some, so let's get into it.
Right, how this is going to go is at the start, I've got some general stuff about how to get into the right mindset before you even sit down and start studying, and then at the end, we're going to go into how to actually study better. So just stick around. Now, I'm going to be looking back and forth because I do have a cheat sheet with notes, but that's just so this doesn't take me like a week to make because I keep messing up the lines. So bear with me. Now, firstly, we're going to talk about sleep. Now, people say you aren't a proper student until you pulled an all-nighter or several. And although this sort of has a common theme amongst us, this is very and incredibly counterproductive to our academic performance. Now, a review in 2006 actually found that sleep quality and quantity, shock, are closely related with academic performance, whilst chronic sleep deprivation, anything less than 6 hours, is linked with poor learning.
But before you start getting worried about watching One Too Many Friends episodes last night,
A study in 2017 found that although acute sleep deprivation, so one night poor sleep, did affect reaction time and blood pressure, working memory was not affected significantly. So just try and keep it to a minimum. Okay, so the second free cheat code we're going to talk about is physical activity or exercise. Now, exercise has constantly been shown to improve brain function and help reduce stress, with a study in 2017 actually finding the strong link amongst college students, university students, between the ones who did vigorous exercise, resistance training, or even stretching, and their ability to tolerate stress. So whether it's going to the gym, doing some high intensity exercise, or even just doing stretching 5 or 10 minutes before your study sessions, your mental health will thank you. Okay, not to be weird, but have you ever smelt a flower, or smelt a cut of grass, or smelt a certain perfume that's transported you back to a time when you were younger? If so, you can use this to your advantage. So for me personally, every time before I study at home, I make a cup of tea, and that just helps me get into the right mindset. You can use coffee, you can use tea, you can use chewing gum, you can use a certain chocolate bar, or even you can use perfumes that you spray on yourself. You can, over time, associate working with that stimuli, so that when you get down to work, if you eat or chew or spray that thing, it'll get you into the right mindset subconsciously. So that's another little cheat code. Okay, so we're sat down, we're working. One thing we need to take into account is distractions. So the biggest distraction on the desktop, apart from if you're studying with a friend, is your phone. Now, phones have been found to decrease concentration rates by about 20% when they're turned on. But what's interesting is the mere presence of them could also be a distraction factor. A recent study was conducted on a group of young adults whereby half were in a room with their smartphone switched off and face down on the table, whilst the other half conducted the same exam but with their phone switched off and outside the room. The members with their phones out on the table scored significantly slower working speeds as well as lower attention performances, suggesting that even the mere sight of your phone can drastically affect your attention. They do show that spatial separation, i.e. placing your phone out of sight, does counteract this though. So when you're studying, just make sure that your phone isn't in sight and make sure it's turned off or at least on silent. Okay, so now we're done with the general stuff. Now it's time to get down to the nitty and gritty. So I'm going to talk you through the when, the what, and the how. So the when to study, what to study, and how to study it. Now the when to study. So during the day, what I found really helpful is to have working hours. So I like to have working hours from 9 AM until 5 PM, like a job. So whether you're pulled away for a dinner, or in my case, Coronation Street episodes, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 PM, you take that into account and you make sure that that doesn't coincide with your revision. So working hours first off. Secondly, be intentional with your revision and make sure that you're realistic. There's nothing worse than planning out 6 hours and then doing 3 that are really half-hearted. So make sure that when you're blocking out time for your studies, be realistic and you're making sure that it's quality, not quantity. So the what encompasses what you're going to study. Now what I find really helpful is that I keep a spreadsheet of all my modules and weekly content, and each time I revise a topic, I note down the day I revised it, and on a scale of 1 to 5, how confident I felt I knew at the end of that study session. So say I was wanting to study something right now, I'd go onto that spreadsheet and I'd look for the most recent date with the lowest score, because that's the topic or piece of content that I know I'm weakest on. So this retrospective angle of revision is much different to planning out future study sessions, because it's very difficult to know what you need to study for in the future, as that incurs an element of prediction, whereas you already know what you're strong or weak at right now. We're nearly there, I promise. So the how to revise. Now the how encompasses how you plan to revise and how you conduct your revision. So a learning method that has been shown to be really effective and something that I've used consistently over the last few years is something called active recall, which is where you have to actively recall information whilst importantly, not having the answers or content of the topic in front of you. So there was a study done by Spitzer in 1939 on memory recall which reflected this. Now, they had a large sample of students which they split into groups. Everyone was given the same 2 articles to read, which they were subsequently tested on either a day or a week later. Everyone was told to continue how they studied as normal in order to prepare for this test. However, half the students were given practice exams after their revision sessions. And not to sound clickbaity, but the results were shocking. Results showed that the practice test group significantly outperformed the normal study group by about 10 to 15%. Now, I don't know about you, but 10 to 15% would be a godsend right now. Now, a quick way to do this, if you want to be time efficient at the end of your revision sessions, is just to quickly draw out a spider diagram which encompasses the content that you just studied. A spider diagram is a really good way to see how well you understand the topic, and it also allows you to see how your topics intertwine with each other, if that is the case within your course. So, after a fair few torturous minutes with me, apologies for that, I've left you with some advice on how you can improve your study sessions and improve your general mindset going into them. And hopefully you've learned something new, which you can incorporate into your own study sessions, but at the same time, if you've got anything useful of your own, any advice that you think other people would benefit from, please do leave them down below. But thankfully it's the end, and good luck.